Hey Mama, I'm here for the second week in a row doing these Thursday evening discussions with you to empower you to do all sorts of great things in motherhood. And tonight we're going to talk about joy unleashed, escaping the guilt trip. So if you're feeling like a negative Nancy, like now's the time. Hopefully the kids are in bed. If they're not, you can watch the replay. But we're going to have an empowering discussion on breaking free from the guilt trip and truly embracing joy in motherhood. So I'm going to talk about how there's really no such thing as negative people. It's really a part of our brain that certain people have decided to live in. And there's also a part of your brain with a way forward that you can also choose to live in. And this might change from moment to moment, but that option is there for you all the time. I'm going to talk about how we're designed to be able to choose the side of our brain that we're going to live in, and that negativity is not something that you're predestined to. It's not in your DNA. It doesn't matter how your family is. Like, this is a choice you get to make, and it's just how you were designed. So a reminder for anybody participating live and engaging with me throughout the live, there's going to be a prize drawing for anybody who engages, and it's for a journal that I designed to help you do all of the things that I'm going to suggest you do in this 30-ish minute talk, I don't know, 20-ish, whatever it ends up being, and truly embrace your full potential. It's called the Palace Path, and I'm giving it away to one person who engages live with me tonight, because it's just more fun that way. And people learn more that way when moms open up and be real with each other. So I'm Lindsay Marie, and after 6 years of navigating the exhaustion, overwhelm, irritability that often comes with motherhood, I discovered a natural and sustainable way to overcome it. So now I'm a mental health nutrition coach, and I'm on a mission to help as many moms as I can shift from barely surviving to truly thriving, and doing that by rebuilding your brain's natural feel-good systems. The first thing I want to talk about is how you have two sides of your brain. I alluded to that in the introduction. So I'm going to quick say you have a palace. I call it the palace side of your brain. It's the positive side of your brain. It's literally the left side of your brain. And that's where we feel good about ourselves. Despite what's going on around us, we can choose to be in that side of our brain and make positive choices. I'm going to go more into this later. First, I'm going to talk about the side that you're real familiar with. And that is what I call the dungeon side of your brain, which is the primitive side of your brain, the right side of your brain, the side of your brain that is all about surviving, okay? It is going to see the negative in anything for your own sake, right? For your own survival's sake. It's going to see what's the worst thing that could happen. I got to be prepared. Remind us of all of the threats that are around us all the time, so we can use the same beliefs, habits, patterns that you've learned before to survive the next time, right? So even if those beliefs, habits, patterns didn't serve us, they kept us alive, right? So that side of the brain is like, do it again. Doesn't matter if it didn't serve you, do it again. You're still alive. So some examples of this. So the palace brain is telling you, like, it's good to be a patient and nurturing mom, right? That's the sensible thing to do for your child's emotional well-being. But your dungeon side of the brain goes, hey, remember when you've lost your shit over and over again and raised your voice and lost your patience? You know, your kid still loves you and they seem to be just fine. So it's fine. It's gonna encourage you to continue that pattern, even if it's detrimental to your goal of being a more patient mom. Okay? Your palace brain might be saying, you know, the importance of providing nutritious meals and snacks for your family, and it's the sensible thing to do, right? That's the palace side of your brain trying to like sneak in when you have those thoughts. So, however, your dungeon brain is reminding you that if you just give in to your kids' cravings for the sugary snacks and the fast food, then you can just have a much more peaceful, tantrum-free mealtime, right? So it is going to encourage you to choose convenience over nutrition every time, even if it's detrimental to you or your child's long-term health, okay? Luckily, we also have a prefrontal cortex. That's what it's called. That's your consciousness. That's what you know as you. Like, that's me. That's where you live, okay? This is the conscious part of your brain. And the good news is that you get to decide which side of the brain you're going to live on. So you can live in the left side, the palace side, or you can live in the right side, which is your dungeon side. And you make that conscious decision from that prefrontal cortex to be in one side or the other. No one can take that choice away from you. That will always be your choice, regardless of who says what or what situation you're in. You can choose what side you are going to think in. And no one else can force you to think on one side or the other. So no one can take it away from you, but no one can do it for you either. Like, this is you, like, you have to do this part. There's nothing, there's no pill, there's no diet, nothing that's going to change this. Only you can decide what side you're going to be on. So your dungeon brain has been collecting all of this survival information from the moment you were born, right? To keep you alive. So if you did it before and survived, you can do it again, okay? This isn't a bad thing, okay? There is a good purpose for this side of your brain. With a difficult background, it's easy to see how that negative programming, like, can be traumatic, right? But even with a happy background, negative data is being stored. Like, in order to be liked, I have to agree with people. Or in order to be approved of, I need to be a good girl. Okay, then people will approve of me. Or I better not get bad grades, because if I get bad grades, I'm a bad person. Okay, and we learn to live by these things to stay alive. Or maybe this side of your brain, more relevant to motherhood or relationships, believes that if you're not a good cook, you're not a good wife. And then you're not lovable, right? Or you can't keep a clean house, so you're not worthy. Like, you don't deserve anything. You're undeserving because you can't keep a clean house. This is not, the side of your brain is not a thriving place to live. It will never be a thriving place to live. Enrolling in these ideas that you're not lovable and you're not worthy, and your desires don't matter, they're going to keep you stuck no matter what you're trying in order to feel better. And so living in that dungeon brain is that perpetual guilt trip. Teresa, I see that you're saying the side that I always think like, ugh, right? Like, yes, this is a natural tendency. It's your survival. It's your survival. And you can't do like anything to take care of yourself, because that's not what you did before. So if you're living in that side of your brain, you can't try anything new, because that's not what you did before to survive. So why would you do it now? You will always feel unworthy for not keeping a clean house, because this is what your dungeon side of your brain believes. But again, you actually have the choice to live in the palace, okay? Even if you're stuck on this side in your dungeon. It's like a small child, okay? This dungeon side of your brain is like a small child, and it's throwing a tantrum every time you try to go outside of the boundaries that it has defined as safe, okay? Which is every old habit and belief and pattern. So when you try to push those boundaries, it's very good at talking you out of it. Like, you don't deserve to do something nice for yourself. So then you don't, and then you beat yourself up, right? You get into this cycle. And then you go back to all your old ways because you like broke this promise to yourself. So you find comfort in other ways instead, like sugar or alcohol or carbs or any kind of relief drug or substance that you find relief in. Curling up in a ball in bed, you maybe become obsessive about things, or just go shopping, right? Because, so I'll get into because later, but how do you move out of this dungeon brain, right? Like, yeah, Lindsay, I hear you. This is very familiar. I am in it all the time. Step one, okay, remember, you have a little toddler in your brain, so you got to be persistent when you've decided to change a habit, a belief, or a pattern. You are not broken when it's hard to do something new, okay? You are conditioned, this part of your brain, if you're living in this part of your brain, of course it's hard to do the new thing, okay? So step one is you do have to be persistent. I'm telling you that you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay feeling guilty, and because this toddler inside your brain is resisting you. It doesn't want you to move out. It's afraid that if you move out, you might die. Okay, so it does not want you to move out into the palace side of the brain. But I assure you that with enough practice, eventually the toddler is going to learn that you're moving out. Okay, it's going to learn, and its tantrums will have little to no effect on you because you will be so sure about the palace side of your brain. So with enough practice and support, you will move out of your dungeon brain for good and start thriving in the palace side of your brain, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But I want to pause for a second. I want you to take note of how permanently you currently feel like your residence in this dungeon side of your brain is. How permanent is your space in the dungeon brain? Remember, if you engage during the live, there is the prize drawing for the Palace Path journal where I'm going to give you lots of tips on how to move out of your dungeon brain. So here's some options. Are you having like an occasional sleepover in your dungeon brain? 1. 2, have you pitched a tent? 3, are you renting a home in your dungeon brain? 4, have you purchased a home? Are you like permanent residence? This is where I'm staying, dungeon brain for life, okay? Or does it feel more like a prison? Number 5, okay? Where are you at with your dungeon brain? What is that relationship looking like? Leave that in the comments. At the end, I'm going to go through your comments. But I have a lot of juicy information here. And I know it's late, and I know you want to get to bed or relax and put your feet up, and you deserve it. So I am going to keep on moving, and I'll look at the comments at the end. So let's understand more about the positive side of your brain. So to help you be persistent when the dungeon side of your brain starts throwing a tantrum, I want to equip you with a list of true things about your palace brain. So write these down, post them somewhere. They're going to be in the comments when I'm finished listing them off. I recommend repeating them to yourself multiple times a day, regardless of how good or bad your day is going. Just repeat these to yourself as much as you can. Because reminding yourself of these truths are going to help you move out of your dungeon brain and into your palace brain. It's going to help you, with confidence, say no to that dungeon side of the brain. And remember, okay, none of what I'm about to say is true about your dungeon brain. Okay, this is completely opposite. You can't have some of this in the dungeon brain. Okay, you have to move out in order to have these things. So the palace side of the brain is intellectual. It thinks for itself. It is positive. It maintains a positive outlook. It's rational. It's the voice of reason. It keeps things practical. It's resourceful. It's your go-to for problem solving. We get to have solutions in the palace side of our brain. It's performance-oriented. It wants to be proficient at work and life is full and full of joy, and work is great, and it's performance-oriented. And it's achievement-focused. So it wants to reach your goals. It wants to try new things. It wants to get to new heights, okay? All of these things are true about your palace brain. And the number one rule of living in the palace is there is no negativity allowed. You can't be in that side and in your dungeon brain at the same time. You have to make a conscious decision to go, nope, I am going to think this instead, not kind of this. Then you're still in the dungeon brain, okay? If it's any shade of negative, you're in your dungeon brain, so stop it. So the negative thought is your cue. You are not in the right side of your brain, okay? You are in the wrong side of your brain if you want to be moving forward. If you want to get out of this guilt trip, if I want to get out of this chaos, I'm going to force myself right now to think a positive thought. And we'll talk about forcing it for a minute too. So brain chemistry. The dungeon brain is telling you right now that what I'm talking about will never work, okay? I know you're dungeon, like, whatever, Lindsay. Like, this is not going to work for me. Okay, but you're still here. You're still listening to me. So your palace brain is still within reach. Okay, I promise you. One thing your dungeon brain might be saying right now is, it can't be this simple. She's wrong. She's wrong. This isn't me. So let me speak to your dungeon brain for a second, because it is important to recognize that your dungeon brain does have your best interests in mind. It's just only laser focused on you surviving. So let me speak to your dungeon brain for a second. You're right. It's not that simple. It isn't. But that's okay, because there's more to the story, and we're going to take all of that into account. We're going to take care of that too. Okay? So it's not that you're wrong, but we are going to address the rest of the things. Your thoughts are an integral piece of the puzzle. And there's never one thing that makes all the difference, right? So no supplement's going to make all the difference. No diet, no food is going to make all the difference. No thought is going to make all the difference. But together, the food, the supplement, the thoughts, they're going to change your world, because they're going to change your brain chemistry, okay? So let's talk about your thoughts specifically and your brain chemistry. When you're taking all the supplements to feel better, and your diet is on point, and you're like, why am I not feeling better? But you're not actually feeling better. It could be because your thoughts are ruling your brain chemistry. What you're thinking is affecting your brain chemistry. So remember when I told you that your dungeon brain talks to you, it talks you out of doing something nice for yourself. And then you beat yourself up, and then you go to all of the things that find you comfort. Okay? I used sugar, alcohol, are a couple of things I used as an example. So you're going to those things when you're in this spiral, because those things are firing, let's say, your happy engine, okay, your serotonin. Even if it's temporary, it's firing serotonin when you do the alcohol or sugar versus do the good thing for yourself. That's the same engine that would have fired if you would have went and did the good thing for yourself. So this is just confirming for your dungeon brain that you don't actually have to go do the good thing for yourself. You just need to drink the alcohol or eat the sugar, and you'll be fine, because you survived last time. Okay? So it's releasing chemicals in your brain the same, and your dungeon brain don't know any better. It's a toddler. Okay? So besides just like cold turkey changing your thoughts, which is a very hard thing to do, sustainably firing those feel-good engines, like the happy engine, like I just gave an example of, sustainably firing those engines, or whatever engine needs the most support, can help you move out of the dungeon brain like way easier, right? Because wait, the feel-good engine's firing. I don't need to go to the alcohol and the sugar. Now I'm starting to like prove that dungeon brain wrong, and I can move into the palace side a lot easier. This is what I help moms do in my signature Feeling Good in Motherhood program. Also, when living in the dungeon brain, when you're assuming the worst, when you're on high alert for danger, your brain is producing all of the survival chemicals that you need, like you're actually in a life-threatening situation. Like, get out of the burning building! And then the cortisol and adrenaline and all those stress chemicals start excreting into our body, and they're actually damaging our health when we're not actually in a life-threatening situation, okay? And the opposite is true for the palace brain. So when we're living there, our brain is like, oh, we're safe. Now I can release these feel-good chemicals, right? So if we're doing all the things to feel better, taking the supplements, the lifestyle, the diet, the exercise, but we're not living in the palace brain where those thoughts can actually turn into those feel-good chemicals, then we're going to stay stuck, because we're in the dungeon brain and our body is just releasing all of these stress chemicals, even though we're trying to do all the right things with our lifestyle. So often when we think about being in fight or flight, and we think about our adrenals, right? So we go to adrenal repair. Well, I have to fix my adrenals to get out of this fight or flight mode. And while that's not the wrong place to pay attention to, it's not the simplest solution, is what I'm saying. So to get out of fight or flight, you need to stop having negative thoughts, or all the treatment for your adrenals is going to be an uphill battle. So you're trying to get your cortisol corrected, right? While your brain is constantly releasing cortisol for negative thoughts. Okay, that's not going to be productive, right? So this is why in the Feeling Good in Motherhood program, we focus on brain chemistry first before troubleshooting what other systems might also need support. Like I said, I'm not saying the adrenals are a wrong place to look, but there might be some simpler things to do ahead of time to get you feeling better, to actually stop releasing so much cortisol into your body in the first place, okay? So, little brain chemistry recap. When you're stuck in your dungeon brain, your brain can't fire the feel-good engines because it's too busy firing the survival engines, right? Those survival chemicals. So, we need to make a conscious effort to be persistent in moving out, even when there's resistance and it doesn't feel natural. We just have to be persistent. And your dungeon brain has evidence that your bad habits are good for you because they're temporarily firing the same feel-good engines, okay, that actually fire when you do good things for you. So we need to fire those feel-good engines in healthy, sustainable ways instead, okay? Everyone's feel-good engines require different repairs. Everybody's journey to this point is different. Everybody's brain chemistry is different. So everyone needs their own path to healing when it comes to brain chemistry. That's why it's important to screen your mood symptoms to see which engines need the most support. And giving the engines that are in the most depleted, giving them the support in natural, sustainable ways is going to help you shift out of that dungeon brain more easily, okay? So I created the mood checkup, which is there to help you determine which of these feel-good engines needs the most support. When you get your results from the mood checkup, you get gobs of practical tips on what to do in order to boost those engines naturally when you feel like that dungeon brain is talking to you, right? There will be a link in the comments or somewhere around this video, so complete it now, and you can start moving out of your dungeon brain like before you go to bed tonight, if you just do it now. So remember, participating and engaging is going to enter you for a chance to win the Palace Path Journal, where I share my 4 attitude adjustments, I call them, and they'll guide you through actionable techniques to move you out of your dungeon brain. So I'm going to go peek at the comments here for a second. I invite you to share your insights, questions, comments, anything focusing on these 2 sides of your brain and the power of choosing between these 2 sides of your brain. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. If you need a little inspiration on what to share, I'm wondering what you're going to do to remember the truths that I shared with you. They're in the comments right now. What are you going to do? Are you going to post them somewhere? Are you going to put them on your computer somehow where you can see them? Are they going to be somewhere where you can see multiple places of your house? What are you going to do to remember the truth about the palace side of your brain, which is open for business? You can go anytime. And I'm curious, which truths are you resisting the most? Because that's actually a cue into your dungeon brain and like the strongest part, like what does it really not like about the palace brain right now? Tells us a lot about the dungeon brain actually. So put it in the comments now or when you're watching the replay, and I will get back to you. I'd love to see your engagement. So I'll keep peeking at comments. Hi, Michelle. Teresa, you're a 5. I'm assuming you're talking about what's like your residence. You feel like you're in a prison on the dungeon side of your brain. So I am sorry. That is not a friendly, fun place to be. For yourself and for everybody around you, right? Like it's just not a fun place. So thanks for being vulnerable and sharing that. And yeah, definitely fill out the mood checkup and see what part of your brain is the most depleted to start giving yourself a little boost, okay? So you have 2 choices, to recap. You have 2 choices on where you are going to live with your thoughts. You get to choose the palace side or the dungeon side of your brain. And no one has that power except you. No one can take it away from you. No circumstance can take it away from you. And remember, you have a toddler on the dungeon side. It's throwing a tantrum whenever you push its boundaries, okay? So quiet that voice by even like doing things like showing up to this live and listening to the whole thing. Like this is an exercise in like, okay, I'm going to start to pull away from this dungeon brain by listening to something more positive. Remember those truths about your palace brain. Your palace brain is the only place where you're truly going to feel good and make progress in whatever it is you're trying to feel better around. And balanced brain chemistry makes that move from the dungeon brain to the palace brain much less daunting and doesn't feel so forced, okay? And it's more achievable long term when you have the brain chemistry to support it. So take the mood checkup, figure out what part of your brain chemistry needs the most support, and start moving out of your dungeon brain and into the palace. And don't forget, Mama, you are meant to feel good in motherhood. I promise. I love you, and go have a cup of tea, put your feet up, go to sleep, whatever you need to do to unwind tonight because you deserve it. Love you.